I, nearly adult male, have a strained relationship with my mum, 35, after an incident that happened about 6 years ago. My mum was super strict and a helicopter parent, so we fought a lot over my grades and the trouble I got into at school. She had essentially abandoned me, signing over custody to my dad after I told her something along the lines of, "I hate you and I wish I lived with Dad." Typical things an angsty preteen says to their parent. But that fight seemed to have broken her and she cried before dropping me off at my dad's apartment. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal and I would see her the next day after she proved a point, but she left me there. After that, things got essentially worse for me. My grades dropped and I kept getting into trouble at school, almost to the point where I was kicked out. My dad never had job security, so money was tight. His girlfriend also wasn't fond of me, saying I was dumped on them. I wanted to go back to live with my mum. I considered apologising, but my mum had essentially moved on with her life. She went back to college to get her degree and was constantly studying, and later on she was focused on her new work. On the weekends that I would get to see her, things were tense between us. She tried so hard to be the fun parent, eating takeout and leaving me to do what I wanted, but it was so unlike her and we became more estranged. 3 years ago she started dating Paul, 39 male, a widower with 2 daughters, a tween and a young teen. She began treating his daughters like they were her own, and they started calling her mummy, which irritated me. Eventually they moved into my mum's house and changed my childhood bedroom into one of the girls' rooms. I was livid when I found out, saying some mean things about the girls, and refused to go back there for my mum's weekends, but she was confused about why I was acting this way. Because of this fight, she thought I wouldn't attend the engagement party when she announced that she and Paul would get married. Besides, she didn't want me there to ruin the perfect picture of her new family, so I made it a point to go to the party and called her out on her behaviour. I wanted to confront her and tell her she wouldn't have to bother with me after I went off to college, but I may have taken it a tad too far. Everyone kept talking about how Paul's daughters were like her children and how it would be when she had more kids, and it snapped something in me. I called her a horrible parent and told her she was trying to replace me with the little brats after she had abandoned me, along with some other insults I don't really remember. Paul kicked me out and my dad out, saying I was an idiot for making his fiancée and girls cry and ruining the engagement party. He said I wouldn't be allowed to the wedding unless I called and apologised. I may have taken it a bit too far, but my dad agrees she had it coming after she abandoned a young child at an age when I needed my mother. So, am I the idiot for ruining my mum's engagement party after she abandoned me when I was 11, and should I apologise? Kiddo, sorry this happened. What she did was selfish and she hasn't made up for what she did. You're still young and can learn from her mistakes. Your best course of action will be to succeed in life. You are not the idiot. With the caveat that the engagement party was not the place to have this blowout despite it being understandable, but it would help if you saw someone before this eats away at you. You're letting her and what she did live rent-free in your head and continue to mess you up. You need to deal with this sooner, not later. You are the idiot. Trying to help your child and being strict with them after they get bad grades and get in trouble at school is normal. You didn't like the consequences of your actions, so you lashed out, and you got precisely what you wanted. She was too strict and helicoptering. You hated it. She was the chill weekend parent. You hated it. Didn't want to live with her. Got what you wanted. Deal with your actions and stop blaming her for them, and please either apologise and change your tune or leave that woman and her family alone. Also, Mom didn't even abandon you. You saw her on the weekends and she gave primary care to Dad, like you wanted. She didn't ghost you. I disagree. Jesus, you're in here holding an 11-year-old child to a standard we don't usually hold adults to. Kids are allowed to make mistakes, and adults are supposed to be there for their children and get them help when needed. Normal people don't go from being helicopter moms to abandoning a preteen and then emotionally checking out for the next bunch of years when there's a visitation. She may have emotional issues, but that's not the child's fault, and she should be apologising to her child. I'm a 50-year-old dad here, and my daughter, 22 female, has always been passionate about climate activism, which my wife, 49, and I have supported, up to a point. We believe in the cause, but also in acting within the law. Well, it turns out she's taken things too far this time. She got involved in some extreme actions targeting private jets, throwing paint and oil in the engines, and even making hoax calls about sabotage. They were recording their acts, probably for social media, but got caught by airport security, leading to her arrest along with her friends. She called us from jail, probably expecting us to bail her out or get her a lawyer, but I told her she'd have to deal with the consequences of her actions herself. After a long talk with my wife, we've decided not to intervene. She's been charged with a slew of serious crimes, including vandalism, trespassing, filing false reports, and potentially even more serious crime due to the nature of the hoax calls. These charges could lead up to 20 years in prison. It's a hard pill to swallow, and I've gone through a range of emotions. But at the end of the day, we've always told her that if she broke the law, she'd have to face the consequences. We never imagined it would come to this, but here we are. I don't feel bad for her, as harsh as that sounds. She's an adult and made these choices, fully aware of the potential outcomes. If she ends up serving time, it's a result of her actions and hers alone. Am I the idiot for not helping my daughter after she was arrested? Oh boy, 20 years. I know you're not looking for sympathy, but hug her mother for me. From one mom to another. I can't imagine what you two are going through and how hard this decision is for you. I'm very sorry you've had to make this choice. You are not the idiot. Personally, I'd have to get my child a lawyer. I wouldn't bail her out of jail though, even if I disagreed with anything she did that would land her in prison. I genuinely feel bad for everyone in this situation. If people who feel that passionate were encouraged to find solutions instead of some encouraging this behavior, more could be accomplished. There's a girl in Louisiana who figured out how to turn broken glass into usable sand, a girl in Africa who turned old shoes into materials for building, and someone else who figured out how to recycle old clothes. We must encourage them to find solutions, not throw paint and oil in the engines. I can't believe she was fool enough to record herself committing the crimes. I'm shaking my head. What is wrong with people like that? You can't claim you're not guilty when those recordings are shown in open court. She may as well plead no contest because she ain't getting off with evidence like that. I'm sorry, OP, because it's your child, but your child showed a stunning lack of judgment and incredible stupidity. Don't get me wrong, climate change concerns me greatly, but that doesn't make it okay for activists for any cause to behave militantly, being violent, destructive, or endangering others. She belongs in jail. I want to start by saying I've done everything for my children. I was there at the hospital for their births, signed the birth certificates, changed diapers, and always provided them with food and designer clothes. But my ex is extremely manipulative and has tried to turn my children against me since day one. She manipulated my older daughter, who refused to talk things out with me. I will still forgive her once she finally decides to snap out of my ex's manipulations and come back to me. Me and my younger daughter, Sarah, had a great relationship until she suddenly flipped the switch in her senior year and was also poisoned against me. When Sarah was applying for college, I didn't want her to go far because she had book smarts but lacked common sense, and I didn't want her to fall for scams. I even offered to buy her a car if she lived with me and commuted to a local school. But Sarah said the local programs didn't have what she wanted. I found it insulting because I went to a local college, and despite what my ex thinks, I'm highly educated without some PhD. Sarah didn't listen to my input at all. She and my ex barely involved me in her college application process, and my ex was extremely unhelpful. I would just ask basic questions like tuition, since I was going to spend considerable funds, and she would either send website links or answer the question. It would have only taken a few seconds for her to answer the question, so I could stay in the loop about what was going on. But this was part of my ex's way of turning Sarah against me. Sarah enrolled at an out-of-state college, and I didn't even find out until May because my ex didn't bother telling me. I didn't even get to see Sarah off at the airport since she didn't tell me she'd left until after she was already gone. I constantly text Sarah to ask how things are going, send her funny Facebook posts, and ask her to call me. I even offered to split the cost of plane fare so Sarah could visit over the holidays. She only responds via email, and it's always her saying she's too busy. I'm frustrated and tired of this. She's taking many classes right now, but I'm her father, and it would only take a second of her day to text me back or talk to me on the phone for 5 minutes. I have supported and been providing for Sarah since day one. I'm done being disrespected when I've bent over backward for 18 years to give her everything and have sent $7,000 just this year for her schooling. I could be doing a million other things with that money. Maybe I am at fault for enabling it for so long, but not anymore. I sent an email telling her that I was done with being disrespected and that if she couldn't even give me the time of day, then my ex could find someone else to split the cost of her schooling with. I sent the email over 2 hours ago, and I'm still waiting for a response. I know my wording might seem harsh, but I'm just so done with being disrespected. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. How you talk about the women in your life is upsetting and concerning. Of course you paid for everything your kid needed during her childhood. That was your freaking responsibility. You don't get a trophy for supporting the children you choose to bring into the world. You aren't unique. Now that she's 18, you could cut her off if you wanted to, but you'd be stupid to think that she's going to come crawling back to play by your manipulative rules with all the hugs and kisses for her daddy. She'll do what most of us had to do. She'll take out loans to cover what you stop paying. You'll never see her again. Forget about her potential future grandchildren. You won't be their grandfather. I don't think your wife had to turn your children against you. You did that all by yourself. Exactly. Sounds like the ex didn't have to poison the kids against him. They just realized how terrible of a person he is on their own. Of course, classic narcissist. It couldn't have been the consequences of his own actions. And he bought food for them. How could he possibly be the ex? He's such a catch. LOL, he got mad that the ex didn't lay out exactly what their daughter was doing for college and only sent a link so he could educate himself, and said it was one of the things she does to turn his daughters against him. Like, what the heck? How can you even come to that conclusion? I have to read something. She's turning them against me. I wouldn't have expected much better for a guy who put signed their birth certificates in the list of outstanding parenting achievements. Update. It has been a day and my daughter has still not even bothered to respond to me. I am not going to just take this disrespect. I've received so many messages making assumptions about what kind of a father I was and attacking me for not enabling a disrespectful adult. I hope you will enjoy handing thousands of dollars every year to support the education of an adult who can't even be bothered to give you the time of day after you've done everything for them. Thank you to the few mature and reasonable people who understand I am not required to enable a disrespectful adult child. My mother-in-law scolded me a few weeks ago for not giving my mother more access to my son, an infant. That time, my husband told her we were the parents and didn't need her to interfere in our decisions for our son. He also told her that none of this was her concern and she should stay out of things when she doesn't know the full story. Mother-in-law tried to argue with my husband, but he shut her down firmly. 2 weeks ago, my mother-in-law brought this up when my husband wasn't present, and I told her that I understood she felt she was advocating for a fellow grandmother and mother of a grown child, but she didn't understand my mother. I told her my mother was cold and uncaring. She had 3 kids, and my older siblings had no contact with either of us for over 20 years because as soon as they were able, they moved out. Even when they were minors living with us, they spent most of their time out of the house. I remember she was just as cold to them as she was to me. I told her I'd never felt loved or cared about by my mother. I had very little contact with her because it's difficult to have a relationship with a parent who responds with, "Why are you so sensitive?" whenever you try to bring up the topic of coldness. I told her my mother had accused me of being too sensitive and so emotional my whole life. I told her I was never held, hugged or kissed by my mother in my memory, and I did not want that for my child, and that I do not want to have her around more to expose myself to that pain, and that I've worked on myself for many years to be a better mother than she was. I told her I didn't want to discuss it again and asked her to have some compassion. On Thursday, my mother-in-law stopped by and told me she ran into my mother, who told her she was trying to meet her grandson. She told me my mother was very upset. Then she told me I should forget about the past and let her be a better mother and grandmother in the present and future. She told me I was wrong for holding the past against her, and she clearly does care now. She spoke to me like a child, and I became angry. I told her to keep her nose out of my business and that none of this concerned her. My husband wasn't home at this time. My mother-in-law became angry, and I told her to leave. She complained to my husband. He told her she deserved everything I said and more. He also accused her of lacking compassion. He told me not to worry about his mother and said he won't let this happen again. She told me I didn't need to be so rude to her face and I should learn how to disagree without getting so angry. This is what makes me pause and made me want to ask, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your mother-in-law feels threatened by the fact that you will cut out a parent or grandparent. This is about her, not you or your mom or your relationship. Your mom not being around is a reminder that it could happen to her if she's too toxic and she wants some control over the situation. By forcing you to accept a toxic parent and grandparent in your mom through guilt trips and nagging, she's really trying to force you to accept any toxic behavior from her towards you and your baby while still having a guarantee of her place. I think you're spot on. Mother-in-law has been told how many times now? Your husband told her nicely but firmly. She tried again with you, and you explained clearly that you didn't have to do it. She then tried again, ignoring both you and your husband, and even then, you repeated your concerns calmly. After that, I think it's more than clear that she doesn't understand kind words concerning this topic. Be careful. She will be taking your child to meet your mother behind your back. If she brings it up again, put her on a timeout from seeing your child. I recently gave birth to my husband and I's first child, a girl. When I was pregnant, we had a lot of trouble deciding on a name, but I finally found one I liked, and my husband said he was fine with it. My husband was playing Street Fighter and I watched it for a few seconds. The character Jury was on screen and something just clicked. I loved the sound of the name and brought it up to my husband. He was a bit unsure at first since the character is apparently a psychopath. I don't really know anything about the game or character, but I assured him it would be fine since we aren't literally naming the baby in honor of the character, and that since it's also a real name, it's not like it's inherently tied to that. He agreed to go along with it and said it was a nice name regardless. So, months later, the baby's born and I'm talking with a friend. She ended up asking how we picked the name Jury, and I brought up that it was kind of a funny story and explained how we picked it. She was kind of astonished, saying that I was naming my child after a villain who's a psychopath and that I was setting my daughter up to be bullied. I argued that it's a real name and not like I was naming the kid something like Darth Vader, where anyone who hears it will immediately associate it with a villainous character. My husband said he went to high school with someone named after Melina from Mortal Kombat, who is also apparently a crazy villain character, and everyone just thought it was cool when they found out. The friend just said I was setting my daughter up for a lot of hardship in the future, and now I'm second-guessing my choice. I didn't think it would be a big deal, but a few other people among my friends and family discovered the name's origin and are now telling me it was horrible to name my child that. Am I the idiot? As a dad and former lawyer, I'm so jealous you'll have a kid named Jury. Mom, is the baby asleep? Dad, the jury is still out. Mom gives the toddler a Cheerio to get them to put on some shoes. Dad, hey, that's jury tampering. Anyway, not the idiot. You'll love the name, and it isn't Scar or Darth Vader. It's a name with independent meaning from its bad guy associations. It's not a super common villain name, if that makes sense, and it is very cute. I doubt most people would recognize where it's from off the bat, and when your daughter shares the origin, it will likely be with people she's close to who would find humor in it, not judgment. Not every Harry is a scrawny orphaned wizard or the brother of the future King of England. Ergo, not every Jury is a villain. A name is a name. You're probably fine.